Hey everybody, this is Rustin with Metalholic and the Examiner. With us today, Michael Bastholm Dahl of Ripe and Artillery. How are you doing, brother?
Well, I'm doing very, very good. I'm sitting here with a cup of coffee and have been waiting to do this interview with you all day, so I'm just hyped about it, so good.
Well, that's great to know. I'm excited now. So now you're getting ready to head off tomorrow, I think, for what is the Barge to Hell tour, right? The Barge to Hell trip?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Now, who else all is going to be on that with now, that's with Ripe or with Artillery or?
Well, that's with the Artillery.
Artillery. So who else is going to be doing that tour, or that show, I should say?
Oh, well, the bands playing on this cruise, oh man, there's so many great bands. Well, some of them, Exodus will play, Napalm Death, Moonspell, what do you have here?
Well, they're all excellent bands, so.
Yeah, Sepultura.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I'm very excited and a little bit nervous as well.
Now, yeah, I mean, jumping ahead. We'll get back to Ripe then in just a second. But you just recently joined Artillery, and I believe they're going to be going into the studio in February to record their 7th album. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Now, for you, I mean, singing in Ripe, which is like traditional classic metal, power metal, going to a thrash band like that, how does that work for you vocally? Well,
it was funny in the beginning because I don't think that much about how I'm going to do it, but of course, I clearly have to do it a little bit different in Artillery than I do it in Ripe. But I mean, it comes naturally because whenever we play with Ripe, it gets that certain feel, and then I do what I do. But of course, I'm gonna give it a little bit more edge in Artillery, and we have tried it out. I mean, we re-recorded one of the old songs, "The Almighty," and I guess everyone can hear on that track that I sing a little bit different, but it's not that hard for me to do, so it's still me.
Nice. Well, I want to talk about the brand new Ripe album that came out this week, Eloquence of Silence. But before we get to that, let's get a little bit of info on you, especially over here in the States, where we know so little about you or the band.
Yeah.
How did you sort of fall in love with rock and roll and heavy metal? Was there like an album or a moment where it was sort of like a moment of epiphany and you're like, that's what I want to do with my life?
Yeah, well, it stems very far back. I mean, my father especially was into rock and roll. I mean, both my parents loved that kind of music, so it's always been in our house. And I remember as a kid, I guess I was 5 or 6 years old, my dad did some work at home, and he had these old huge tape machines, 8-deckers or whatever they are called, I can't remember. And he had Let There Be Rock by AC/DC on that one, and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. And I never forget how, the equalizer would bounce out whenever Phil Root would pound the drums, and the ferocity of especially Let There Be Rock by AC/DC. I mean, I was totally enthralled. I was under the spell. So it was never a kid's songs for me. I mean, I was listening to radio and dug up everything I could get my hands on because, I mean, it was before the internet in these days. Oh my God. So anyone who had anything, I mean, I would dig into that and listen to it, yeah. But especially Sabbath, early Sabbath and early AC/DC, that was it for me, yeah.
Soaking it all up like a heavy metal sponge.
Yes, indeed.
Do you remember your first concert that you went to?
Yeah, I attended some small concerts, but the first one I actually went to was, I guess it was a Henry Rollins show.
Wow.
At a festival. And I mean, I never forget that concert because it was a huge crowd, and I mean, it was back in 1997, I guess, or 6. So I was 16 at that time, and Henry was really firing it up, and I guess it was around his Come In and Burn record, and I remember getting beat up at the front, and I wasn't used to that, so I went to the back, and then Henry threw his water bottle in my head. And I turned around and looked angrily at him, and he was just standing there like apologetic. And years later, I met him on one of his spoken word sessions, and
right.
I told him he threw a bottle in my head, and he laughed at it, and of course I did too. And it was just such a funny anecdote to could tell him. Yeah, so.
Absolutely. So that's a great story. So now, for you as a vocalist, I mean, you have your own unique voice and everything. That's just part of who you are. But were there people that sort of inspired you, or that you tried to maybe emulate a little bit to work into your vocal nuances?
Yeah. I mean, I can't deny that, of course, all the old greats, Ian Gillan and David Coverdale, but also Bruce Dickinson and Rob Halford. I mean, all the usual ones.
Right.
I also liked Mike Patton very early on because he did all this funny stuff. I mean, Mr. Bungle and later on Phantomas and all. It was so weird, and I figured I could use my voice as an instrument more also. So I dug into like you got Billy West over there doing Futurama and all that, and I absolutely love Billy West because he can do all that stuff with his voice. So voice artists as well inspired me. Yeah.
So you're all over the place in terms of what you listen to and what your background and everything. That's usually it's very narrow a lot of times when I talk to people. So it's really cool to hear that you've got such a vast and broad experience there. Now, Ripe has actually been around for a decade now, but you joined in 2009, and not coincidentally, the very next year, the debut album, A Moment of Forever, came out.
Yeah.
What I mean, was it just sort of they were just sort of getting themselves together for those first few years, and like right after you joined, it just sort of all came together, or?
I don't know. I mean, I think the band changed a lot in the early days. It started out as just being a cover band, and the founding member, Bob Thunder, he I think he just wanted to start a good rock and roll band, and then later on, people turned up and they were very talented. So slowly they went into writing a record, and they did that with another guy called Oliver Viers, and he attended an X Factor show, and he didn't win, but he became very popular. So he left the band. So they were a little bit disillusioned when I joined the band, and I said, well, we should write a new record and then just stay focused on it, I guess. And but of course, to me it was a huge learning process because I was just a local guy from Funen that lies in the middle of Denmark, so I wasn't used to going to Copenhagen, which is the capital of Denmark, and meeting all these guys. I mean, one of the first guys I met was Michael Denner from Merciful Fate, and I was totally floored. So I guess it all came together by chemistry and because of Will. I mean, now we wanted to move on, and they certainly wanted to move on. So I guess that's what's happened. Yeah.
Now with you in the band and everything, the band's pretty solidified. Although recently Bob Thunder just left the band, you have a new bass player now. But how does the songwriting process work in the band? Well,
the way we did A Moment of Forever, we wanted to do something that was a little bit like a concept album without being too heavy on it, because I guess sometimes, like when King Diamond does a record, he sometimes, I guess, makes the concept story so, I mean, integrated in the whole album that you have to listen to the whole album. That's not a bad thing, but we wanted to do something else, so we have an overall theme, but not a tight story. So I came up with the idea lyrically, and then we just went into, we borrowed a small house which was very isolated, very close to the sea, and then we just sat there and were riffing it out and playing. But on a usual basis, when we're not going away or something like that, very often I have an idea for a lyric theme or something, and then the guitarist Jacob and the drummer Peter, they will jam together and then send me something, and then I will listen to it, and then we demo it up, and that's the way we do it and work it out after all.
Actually, and it's funny you said that, you know, in this day and age with technology and everybody with the digital downloads, and you get so many people that don't even commit to sitting and listening to an entire album from beginning to end, it's difficult to put together a concept like that is so integrated. Now, A Moment of Forever came out in 2010. This is the sophomore album, The Eloquence of Silence, released 2 days ago. Was there a concept in mind that you had for that when you started putting lyrical ideas together?
Yeah, I very early on, I mean, I have all these small bits of paper lying around where I work and close to my computer, and I got this idea about a guy who was more alive in his dreams and his subconscious than he was in the real world. And that was, I don't know where that came from. I guess sometimes we feel like that. Then I just got inspired to do that, and I figured that the subconscious can have a lot of persons down there. I don't mean it in a way of being like schizophrenic or anyway, but it's just that we have so many facets. You know, you can use yourself in many ways if you just look into it, and you can work stuff out. Look into yourself, and then you can reach out.
So now, how did that play out in the album? You know, because it's an excellent album. And everybody tabs you guys as a power metal band, which I get, but really there's a lot of elements of the new wave of British heavy metal, you know, going back to the early days of Iron Maiden and stuff like that. There's a lot of great nuances there. But lyrically, in terms of the Eloquence of Silence, how did that play out over the album? Is there a sort of a storyline that's going through there for you?
Yeah. I just wanted him to have this problem about the real world, this person that we follow in the story, and he evolves throughout the songs, and sometimes he experiences some setbacks, and other times he acknowledged that he now has moved on a little bit, and in the end of the album he experiences some kind of liberation. I don't know, I don't want to tell too much, but it is not it's not clear whether that liberation is a sort of, how can I say this, whether it's the death of his old self or is the beginning of a new life. I just wanted to have this like he was reinventing himself. Yeah.
Right. Now, no, that's a great concept. I love it. Now, on every album, everybody loves every song on every album. I get that. They're like children. But are there, you know, a couple of songs on this album that really stand out or have more meaning for you, either due to the lyrics or the story behind how they came together?
Yeah, I mean, the Apart Apart song, that was we were having this writing session, and in the beginning we were a little bit, well, I wouldn't say stuck, but we didn't know where to go, and all of a sudden this song came up, and then we said, yes, now we are onto something. I mean, we really felt that now the whole process we're going in the right direction with that song. But I guess Song for a Shadow is one of the songs that I really like because it was so difficult to get finished. I guess we have 8 or 10 versions of that song lying around because it couldn't just, we couldn't make it fit, and so the song went into so many stages that I guess it just became this darling that you couldn't really cope with. But in the end, I guess we did well with it, and the last song is Saint of the Scar, and that's because it was one of the very first songs I wrote lyrically. And that's the idea, not of being a saint, but just we all have our scars, visible or not, and we are all a product of what we are and what we have experienced, and some people would like to represent themselves as being like, saints due to their scars. Mm-hmm. So I wrote that song due to that. So.
And do you have a scar like that you carry? Yeah,
I guess we all do. But yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
But you're not going to share. I see how you are. So now it's so hard to get over here to tour in the States, and Ripe is, a lot of people are really just starting now to catch on, and they were really looking forward to this album. But is there a chance that you're going to get over here and tour in the United States at all?
I certainly hope so. We have been talking to some about visiting the States, and it will be so cool. I'm so astounded by some of the people who has written to me on Facebook and all, and I guess, well, I will try as the hardest I can to get over there to you guys. It would be so great, yeah.
Absolutely. So, I know that we keep making it more and more difficult to get the bands over here, but bastards that we are, I swear. So I some questions. It's near the end of the year and everything. So for fun, it's almost the end of the year. What's the best album of 2012 for you so far?
Oh well, I went through my whole record collection of what I've bought the last 12 months, and I have to say that Overkill with the Electric Age. I mean, I have met Overkill once, and I'm a huge fan of him. And I think that album is it sticks out because it's so solid, and I love the energy. So Overkill with Electric Age, yeah.
Nice. You know, it's funny. Everybody that I've talked to, I've asked this question over the last month. Anybody I've talked to in Europe has said Creator's Phantom, Antichrist.
Yeah.
So you're the first one to pick something different. Thank you for that.
Well, I'm glad to say then.
So now I know I sort of gave you a heads up. I was going to be asking you a couple of these questions. So did you put together your list, your top 5 hard rock metal albums of all time?
Yeah, I have it right here, written down in paper and everything, so I can. So I'm prepared. Yeah, well, the first one on the list is AC/DC's Highway to Hell, and that's because that was the very first tape I got, and that blew me away. I mean, the production by John Wood Lange is fantastic, and everything just comes together. I mean, to me, it's the best AC/DC album ever. And Bon is incredible on there. So that's the first one. The second is Iron Maiden with Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And that's because that was... I mean, I got the poster for it. I was 8 years old at that time, and I was totally blown away by the artwork. And I just had to get that record, and I bought it, and I didn't understand it. I was totally confused. I mean, it was way more complicated and than I was used to, but I got into it, and it's grown with me throughout the years. The third one, I mean, I guess it's too much of a classic, but I have to say that Judas Priest's Painkiller.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, when I bought that record, I was totally, I mean, I couldn't let it go. So that's, I still listen to some of the songs on that album. So yeah, that's the one. Judas Priest album for me. And number 4 is Slayer, Divine Intervention. Because I was watching the Headbangers Ball, I guess, on MTV at that time, and they did this special about the release of Divine Intervention. And first of all, I really liked the guys in Slayer. I could relate to them, I felt. and at the same time, songs like Ditto Head and all that was so extreme to me, so I was totally fascinated by that. So yeah, and the last record, the number 5, is Motorhead Sacrifice, and I'm a huge fan of Motorhead, and I've always been. And the reason why I say Sacrifice is because I bought that record when I had a time when I didn't really believe in music anymore. I mean, I was getting tired of it, and then I bought that record, and it totally set me back on track. I felt, well, songs like Over Your Shoulder and Dogface Boy and all those songs in that album is so great, and it's in your face, and Motorhead is just like this old, reliable, rusty tank that would go on and walk through ages and just play hard-hitting rock and roll all the time. So that's the reason why.
That's Lemmy's mantra. We are Motorhead and we play rock and roll. So,
exactly.
So I have to ask, as a vocalist, who is, in your list of the hierarchy of all-time great vocalists, who would be at your number 1 spot?
The ultimate vocalist?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so hard. But I guess, I guess Ronnie James Dio.
Yes. You really can't put anybody else at that number 1 spot. I mean, Halford, Dickinson, Tate, they're all monsters, but Dio just had something magical about his voice that set himself apart from everyone. Yeah, and not just due to the fact that, I mean, he sadly left us here some years back, but when you watch Heaven and Hell play in the Radio Music City Hall, that live recording, I guess that's so incredible. I mean, so intense, and they're just, I mean, 4 guys, and they put out this huge sound, and yeah, so I would say Dio, yeah. That was one of those things for me growing up. I discovered Dio purely by accident. I was at the record store one day just looking for something to buy. Back when we had vinyl, now I'm really dating myself, and I saw Rainbow's live album, the stage album, with the big rainbow across, and I thought the cover was so cool, and I took it home, and then I heard, Kill the King and Man on the Silver Mountain, and I was just gone. So, but now it's almost the holidays here. Christmas is coming up. If you could have a holiday dinner party with 5 special guests, not including family, let's call this the party of 5, past, present, alive, or dead, who would they be?
Lemmy Kilmister, because I always wanted to ask him a couple of questions. I mean, I know he released White Line Fever and all this great documentary movie thing about him, but I still wanted to ask him some personal questions, or at least have a drink with him. And Bruce Dickinson, of course, because he's one of my huge idols, and because he seems to be a very positive person, a very driven person, and I admire that. And of course, Ronnie James Dio, and Alice Cooper, because to me he also is this kind of figure who just would stay in the scene, and he's a chameleon, and you can buy Alice Cooper albums some years apart, and you wouldn't even be able almost to hear that it's the same artist apart from his voice, and I think that's incredible that he could be so diverse. And the last one on the list is Bon Scott, because he seemed to me like he was a very struggling character, and I think he was so pure in his way to be into music and singing. He was, when you see him live on those few live recordings that are available, I still feel that he's with me today. So that's the reason why he's number 5 on my list. Yeah.
Nice. So all musicians, that would be a great party to be at. I mean, you got Lemmy, who is basically God. The one question I want to ask him is, with all the money you've got, why would you not get that thing taken off the side of your face?
Yeah.
It's like his twin. But anyway, and just for fun, before we get out of here, do you have any phobias?
Phobias?
Yeah.
No, I don't actually have. No. No, I haven't.
Not afraid of heights, spiders, snakes, nothing like that, huh?
No, not really. I mean, in Denmark, we don't have that. I mean, we don't have that much. We don't have those huge carnivores or spiders or anything. So I haven't really experienced anything traumatizing. So no, I don't actually have phobias.
See, if you lived here in the States, your phobia would probably be politicians. So, last question before we get out of here. You guys record. You guys go get into this old little place, I guess, this little house or something on the coast. What's that like, recording there and writing and everything?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it's even necessary these days because there's so many ways that people can get in contact with you, either through your iPhone or by normal phone or Facebook. I mean, everything. And we went out there with nothing. All we had was a lot of meat, so we could live well, and a lot of beer, so we can drink well and just be relaxed and take a walk into the woods and get inspired and relaxed. I guess that's sometimes very important because you can all just sit there and work hard and grind riffs out and just saying, "Well, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that." But I never think that those ideas that pop up into your head when you're relaxed, they're a whole lot different than those where you just, going through the motions, and I think that's very important that you allow yourself to relax in the writing process. Yeah.
Wow. Michael, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. The new album from Ripe, Eloquence of Silence, out this week. Phenomenal. Artillery going into the studio early next year, assuming the world doesn't end in a month or a couple of weeks, whenever it's supposed to. And good luck on the Barge to Hell show. And maybe after the first of the year, when you guys are working on the new album, we can talk again or something.
I certainly hope so. And thank you so much for giving me and us this opportunity. And it was such a pleasure to talking to you. So
absolutely. We could sit and just talk old metal for hours. So,
Yes.
All right. Take care, my friend.